Hi guys. Hi guys. Good energy out there today. Thank you so much for coming. So let's start this adventure off. So I think it's really funny that I'm up here today talking to you about stories because a very long time ago in a country very far away called Los Angeles, I grew up telling stories. I started really young in theater, always was in the creative, I was always quite creative. And I had to endure this question throughout my whole life, which was, yeah, but when are you really gonna get a job? Like, when are you gonna get a real job? And it's funny because I guess I found a real job, didn't I? And it's funny because I'm up here today. It's funny how things come full circle like that, talking about something that's driven me my whole life, which is stories. So you can deliver any message inside if the Trojan horse or vehicle of the message is a story. Now the Trojan horse is awesome. It is an awesome example of strategic storytelling. We all remember the story of the Trojan War, I hope. Let me refresh you. So back in Sparta, we had Helen of Troy, who was the most beautiful woman in the world. I imagine that every single time she walked by, like flowers bowed before her, like, Helen, you're so beautiful. And she was married to Menelaus, who was this big, butch, rough king of Sparta guy. And one day, the soft and sensitive Paris of Troy came over, and apparently Cupid hit her with an arrow, and she melted and was like, he is the cutest boy I've ever seen. So they get whisked away over to Troy, and Menelaus is not happy about it. He's really not happy about it. So he sends a bunch of people over there, the 1,000 ships, and it's like the cast of every great Greek hero. Achilles is there, Odysseus. But they get there and stuff doesn't go quite right. They can't defeat the Trojans. People die. Achilles dies. If we remember the movie with Brad Pitt, we know that Brad Pitt dies. And after 10 years, Odysseus is like up to here. He can't take it anymore. He wants to go home. So he goes away for a minute and he goes for a walk. He's like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? We gotta get out of this. I gotta win this war. And he sees a horse. And the horse was the symbol of Troy. So he goes, you know what, I got it. So he goes back to the camp, and he's like, all right, guys, listen up. This is what we gotta do. We gotta burn down the camp. You all have to leave, so we have to pretend that we're leaving. We have to construct a giant horse where me and my men have to go inside of it, and then we're gonna be brought into Troy, and then we're gonna defeat them from the inside. And the Greeks go, yeah. And so they build this horse in 3 days, they burn the camp, and they leave. So there's one guy who goes up with the horse to the gates and is like, hi guys, the Greeks abandoned me, here's a present. And they're like, oh my God, it's a horse. Oh my God, it's about us. Yeah, bring it on in. Yeah, bring it on in. And what happened? Destroyed. But think about it, if he would have constructed a giant dog or a giant cat, they probably would have been like, no, that's suspicious, not letting that one in. But because he knew the story, he was able to put a message inside and deliver it. So the idea is that you can deliver any message as long as the vehicle of the story, the vehicle is a story. So we've been around for like 200,000 years, human beings, right? And we've evolved a whole lot. But it actually turns out we haven't evolved that much. We still have the same core emotions, and we still have the same way of storing information. But the problem is that today, that gets a little bit difficult. Today, there's so much information. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't even really process it anymore. So you are really one in a million out there. And so how do you become the one in a million that stands out? And that's what a story can do. Why? Well, because with your businesses or whatever, as you're building your story, the thing is that you're asking people to invest. You're not asking just investors to invest their money, but you're asking people to invest their time, their energy, also maybe their money as well, but also then you're asking them to invest their care. They have to care about something in order to invest in something. Now, you guys, I'm sure, have great business plans, and I'm sure if you were to present your business plan, I would be like, yeah, it's good. Like, yeah, makes sense. But it's not going to inspire me to act. It's not going to inspire me to do anything. And that's why we need stories, because a story will inspire whoever it is that you're trying to talk to do something. That's ultimately what you want them to do, is you want to get them to act. Because stories are intrinsic. They hold our values, our beliefs, as well as our judgments and our prejudices. And for example, with this ad, and I love these ads from Apple, because you don't see a computer up there. I don't see a computer. I don't know if anybody else sees one. No, you see Picasso and Muhammad Ali up there, and what is the story that they're telling? These are men that have big stories behind them. They changed things. Picasso, Muhammad Ali, they inspired us. And they inspire us to think different. And by Apple associating themselves with this story, we become associated with this story. See what I'm saying? Because they're inspiring us to be different. They're inspiring us to be different, which is really what we dream. Man, wouldn't this be amazing if I could come up with the next great idea, or if I could innovate, or if I could create something that would change the world? So what does this do? It creates an emotional connection, right? But also content for your message, content that is creative. So I love the nuns up there. Even the nuns are into Harley Davidson, you know what I'm saying? That's an emotional connection. They would feel that freedom, even if they can't necessarily get on a bike, not to say that they can't. So this is the other thing about stories too, is that oftentimes I, in terms of my experience being here, that this is often lacking. Stories are for you. I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this for me. And by looking through the eyes of your audience, it will help you tell your story in a more effective way. What do they want? What do they want? What are they attracted to? And looking through their eyes is really the point of the story. A story is the most generous thing you could do, telling a story. So recently, I'm sure you've all heard about Captain Train. There's like big, enormous success, right? And what was really exciting was on Wednesday morning when TheFamily was we have a meeting every Wednesday. And the energy in the room was so exciting. Everyone's like, ah, Captain Train, Captain Train. Why? Because TheFamily was a part of that story from the beginning. And so they feel a part of their success, and we can celebrate their success with them. So with you, the thing about your story is that people will invest, they will feel a part of it, so that when you succeed, your customers and the people involved will feel like they've succeeded with you. And come on, it's fun. What isn't fun about a nun on a bike having fun? That's fun. And that's the other thing about stories. It's entertaining, and it's infused with emotion. And the truth, and what it really all comes down to, is that it's honest and it's human. Storytelling is probably one of the oldest things in the book. It started as a survival tool, actually. And it was a way of intensely storing information into your brain and shortcutting to your emotions. Stories define and bind our humanity. And that's the thing that makes them so powerful, is that they're human. So I have a friend who, every single time you see him, he's always wearing a shirt that's completely wrinkled. Like, he cannot iron his shirt, right? It's like you can see how long the shirt has been on the floor before he put it on. And so I went up to him one day and I said, like, maybe you should iron your shirt. You're kind of giving off this message that you're immature, that you just rolled out of bed, you're also 35, He goes, no, that's not my intention, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So here's the thing. All storytelling is, really basic, is meaning generated intentionally or unintentionally in the process of conveying your message to an audience. So guess what, guys? Everybody in this room, all of us, we're already storytellers. We're telling stories all the time. Now, my goal today is to kind of take what is unintentional and start to move it into the intentional category, so that whatever message you're trying to convey is intended and it's received in the way that you want it to be received. So today, I woke up at 6. I got a coffee. I drank it. I took the metro. I came to work. I talked to Julia. And then I heard footsteps slowly coming up behind me. I turned around and I saw red heels, skin as soft as silk, a blue skirt, a red jacket, hair as soft and silky as the sun. Okay, the moment I start engaging your senses and I start actually telling you a story, I'm actually triggering all of your brains. And stories turn on our brains scientifically. We start to see the world in color, and it's brain power. So it's cool. So once I start hitting your senses and I start bringing in like, hey, red heels, you start in your brain, fireworks start going off. You start feeling things. It starts releasing dopamine, pleasure. And what's really cool when you start storytelling is that there's this thing called neural coupling that begins to happen, which means you and I start syncing up. And you stop, hey, and you don't hear what I'm saying, you start to experience it. So like I was saying, storytelling is like one of the oldest tricks in the book. It was a survival tool. Why? Because the way that we store information is through stories. We remember stories, we do not remember facts. So if you want your message to be received and remembered, storytelling is literally for that. And the best part about it is that all we do is look for stories. We spend 1/3 of our days, according to science, daydreaming. Just daydreaming. And we're looking for stories. We're looking for stories all the time. So the stage is yours, and we're waiting for you. So what is a story? So it's a whole new world, obviously. And I love this. You get taken on a ride. And there's a beginning, middle, and end, and it changes the way that you see things. Now, everything is a story. Everything's a story. If I were to go around this room and ask you, hey, how did your parents meet? I'm just going to guess most of you would be able to tell me that story, which means that we're all here because of a story, right? So we're very, very, that's our whole existence is a story. But there's so many ways to tell a story, yeah? Like, if you think about all your favorite films, the series that you watch and stuff, we see different ways that you can structure a story. So my goal here today is I'm going to just give you the bare, basic, what's a story, and then later I'm going to give you a couple of storytelling structures to inspire you to go look for your stories yourselves. So I can show you the world. So this is following the CAR framework, okay? First is context, okay? Where, when, where are we, okay? Who is the main character? What does he or she want? Who and what is in the way? Now, where and when is just gives us a sense of, what's happening. It's like, okay, so we're at the family, right? It's 2016, we're all on the same page. Who is the main character? Now, this can change, obviously, depending on what you're trying to do. It could be you or your company. It could be your consumer, your customer, or it could be your investor. So the main character can change, but we still want to know who the main character is, because it's the person we identify with. What does he or she want? Yeah, man. We all want things, and we all have things that get in the way of what we want. And that's the obstacle. And what does the obstacle bring? Action. Action, baby. That's what it's all about. Action. Poor Frodo. Poor Frodo. It took him 3 films to get rid of that darn ring, man. And he went through everything during those 3 films. He almost died like 50 times. People tried to kill him. He lost his friends. He had conflicts with himself, believing with himself, and conflicts with the environment around him. But he learned some lessons. Do you remember that part in Lord of the Rings where he meets Kate Blanchett? Do you know Kate Blanchett? And what does she tell him? Even the smallest person can change the future. Even the smallest person can change the future. Lessons learned. And what's important about this is that this is human. This is what people experience in their everyday lives. They have conflict and struggle, and they learn lessons. This is universal. And then there's the result. So after all of that journey, all of that conflict, all of these lessons, what's the result of all that? Forrest Gump goes running forever, right? Running, running, running. People start to follow him. Some person steps in crap and he goes, well, shit happens, He keeps running. And then one day he just stops. And what was it all for? You got to put the past behind you before you can move on. All of that just to arrive at that conclusion. So what do we learn? And why did you tell this story? One of the things that I love about the story of Forrest Gump as well is that, we're all average. He's just like an average guy. But he actually wasn't just an average guy. He was below average, just below average. And without even trying, he participated in every major American event in American history without even trying. And the way that it comes full circle at the end with his son and the wisdom that his mother passes down to him, and then he's going to pass it down to his son. You can see in not just in that movie, but in many movies, how much meaning that has for all of us. So, okay. That's all well and fine, okay? We get stories, we see films, we watch series and all of that. But what does that mean for you, finding your story? So, I'm gonna break this down into a couple different sections. Now, there's storytelling that's completely nonverbal. So the moment I stepped out on stage, I'm already telling a story. I don't even have to say anything, right? I'm neutral, but I've got a little pizzazz happening. I've got my body happening. All of this is communicating a story. All of your visuals, if you just take a minute to think about what I did with my slides where it went from black and white to color, that tells a story. So color tells a story. The language you use to tell the story, everything tells a story. But now we're going to get into structuring your story as well, and passing on to when you have to speak in public, and storytelling like I'm doing now, or pitching presentations, that sort of a thing. So first, I'll say this to start to change your mindset or move your mindset so that you can make some room to start thinking about story and things to inspire the stories, your stories to come out of you. So first is you gotta find your hook. You gotta find your hook. So what are you offering? What do your customers want, or what does your audience want? And what makes you different? Okay, so I'll give you an example. So this is Fresh Direct. I don't know if you're familiar with this company. It's a company out in New York. And what they offer is, produce, fruits and vegetables, or like a market. What do their customers want? Well, in New York City, time. They want time. And what makes them different? They deliver it to your door. So then with that hook, they are able to create content that speaks to their customers that also speaks to how they're different. So spend more time with your kids because we'll deliver your food to you. So that's the first part. So that's one thing to get you thinking about your hook. What is your connection with your audience? Then you have all of these platforms that you're communicating on. You've got your emails, you've got your social media. So your story will help you use each avenue to support the story that you're telling. So let's take a look at some storytelling structures. The hook is to get you in the mood. And now let's think about different ways you can structure your story to make it more compelling. Do you guys know this movie, Hook? So good, right? Okay. So in case for those of you that haven't seen it, so Robin Williams plays Peter Pan, all grown up. He's a businessman, he doesn't spend any time with his kids, and he's kind of a dick, And so Hook, obviously because he's always wanting to fight Peter Pan, comes back, kidnaps his children, and so Peter Pan, with the help of Julia Roberts' Tinkerbell, goes back to Never Never Land. Except he doesn't even remember who he is. He doesn't remember that he's Peter Pan. And so the process of the film is him remembering. So this is a scene after the Lost Boys have put him really through the ringer, They get to a banquet table for dinner, and Robin Williams is really hungry. And all the Lost Boys are so excited, it's dinner time. So they start passing all these pots, plates, so excited, and then they go to open it, and there's nothing. It's just empty plates and empty pots. And Robert Williams is like, what is this? Where's all the food? And the kids are like, believe, Peter, believe. Use your imagination. And so he begins to believe again, and then what appears is all of these meats steaming and all of these cakes that are really bright, and then they fall into this amazing, amazing food fight. But at the end of this scene, they're a complete mess. They're throwing food everywhere. And then Rufio, who's not that into Peter Pan, adult Peter Pan, he takes a coconut and he launches it at Robin Williams, and he grabs a sword and he slices the coconut, and everything goes silent. And they're like, oh, and he begins to remember what he believed in. And belief is why I'm starting with this structure, which is called the Golden Circle. You can find information about it online very easily. So we all talk about what we do, right? What do you do? I'm a storytelling coach at TheFamily, blah, 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 blah. But this structure requires you to think about this a little bit differently, talking about why you do what you do before talking about how and what you do. So what do you believe in? What gets you up in the morning? Why are you doing this business? How are you going to support that vision, and with what? So if I were to take Apple, for example, because as we saw with their ad, there's no computer in their ad, right? They're all about storytelling. It's they never are selling computers, essentially. Why? Okay, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. How are we going to do that? Okay, well, we're going to make technology accessible. We're going to make it sexy, etc. What? Computers. And you can feel how that's so much more engaging and compelling because you want to believe. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. For example, so a mission statement, they're just looking at Nike's mission statement, to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. According to the CEO of Nike, if you have a body, you're an athlete. So that's also pretty cool. And all of their ads completely support that statement. They don't say, we sell athletic equipment. You're like, oh, well, who doesn't? No, they're selling inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. How are they doing that? With all of the technology, all of their clothes are high tech and cool, and what they're doing is selling what is athletic equipment at the end. Another great example is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has great storytelling. So if you're looking for examples or inspiration, I think Coca-Cola is a great emblematic brand that has a great storytelling from the beginning. And their statement is to refresh the world, to inspire moments of optimism and happiness, to create value and make a difference. And you can see that even in their visual storytelling that totally matches. But they don't say that they're selling soda, right? People buy why you do things. They want to feel a part. They want to believe. They don't necessarily just want to drink Coke. This is an example of one of the startups here. Where's Melissa? Oh, she's in the back. So we were working. They just launched their Kickstarter campaign. So I've been working with her on that, and while we were working on the content for the Kickstarter, and just think about Kickstarter, they require a video, they require you to be personal, right? They require you. People want to invest in your story. And we were saying, she's not saying that she's selling backpacks, right? The backpack is like a means to an end. She believes that life is an adventure. She's Peruvian. Her partner is French. They met at university. They decided to travel all of Peru together. And in this process of traveling all of Peru, they fell in love. And they decided that they really wanted to bring tradition, this majesty of Peru, to us. And say that every day is an adventure. You are an explorer, no matter where you are. So you're gonna need a companion to help you as an explorer, to help you along the way on your journey. And so then the backpack has so much more meaning, right? Because it comes from a place of belief. So this is the hero's journey, and this is always you've probably heard of this one if you've heard of anyone. People are familiar with the hero's journey. So the hero's journey is really fun because it's pretty much every film that we know. The Matrix, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. So let's talk about Neo for a second. So Neo starts off, right, in the Matrix, and he's just like some guy. He doesn't even like his job. He's really boring. And then he gets a call, follow the white rabbit, right? He meets Morpheus. Morpheus gives him the choice. He's like, I don't know. That tension, and then he decides to take it, and bam, boo, Mr. Anderson, whoa, everything happens, woo, woo, woo. And in the process of this journey, Morpheus trains him, he gets help, blah, 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 blah. He learns to believe in himself, right? And then at the end of the first film, remember what he says at the end, right? Where he says, I am going to free everybody. I am going to tell everybody. And that's the hero's journey, is that it's a full circle. The hero goes on the journey to become a hero, because the reason why he's a hero is because he shows us that a way is possible when we didn't think it was. So what would this mean for you guys in terms of your objectives? So the journey to success, starring Agricool. So Agricool is a startup with us, and they are two sons of farmers, so identity. Who were you when you started this journey? So they were two sons of farmers, and they came to the city to study. And they were shocked at how disgusting the produce was. They were shocked that it had no taste. So they decided that they're going to change that. No, that's not right. Everybody deserves to have great produce like we did. Then the struggle. Yeah, I have the struggle. What did you struggle against as you started to create change? So, okay, people said that was crazy. People said they couldn't do it. Probably also farmers might have felt threatened that they were trying to innovate agriculture. Just think about what's going on with Uber and the taxis and stuff. This is all part of the struggle, right? But the insight that they got was they came here to the family. And this is the insight or the tools that they gained in order to make this overcoming easier, right? Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And if you were to read that manifesto behind you, I think you would really feel that the family is built on a really strong set of beliefs. We believe that the young will now teach the old. How? Well, we're going to educate the startups, etc. What? We're an investment firm for startups. Much more compelling. And finally, resolution. Who are you today, and who do you serve? So now they have, their container, and they also have a little experiment going on downstairs. And their container. Oh, I didn't give you context. So what they've done is that they've developed a way to produce strawberries without using any dirt, and giving the strawberries all the nutrients that it needs, and they can produce way more strawberries than you could with conventional agriculture. So now look, they're on their way, and they're serving us, and they're doing this for us, so that one day we will have as good as produce as they had. So this is Sparklines. You can find a lot of information on this online. And I really like this one as well, because it establishes how the world is, meaning today, this is how things are. And then, next to that, you show what could be. For example, Airbnb. We imagine a world where you can belong anywhere. And with this structure, you keep on contrasting the way the world is and the way that you imagine it could be, that we end up getting inspired as an audience, being like, yeah, it could be that way. It could be that way. Could be that way. And then the call to action at the end engages us as your audience to take part in creating the new bliss or the new norm. So an example of this is Steve Jobs' 2007 iPhone speech. And that's really great to just listen to, because he really uses this really well. So when he introduces the iPhone, he talks about what's happening right now, how this technology is going to change everything. And he goes in between, and then at the end, that new bliss, he says, but we're not even done yet. This is going to change the world, and we're going to keep on changing the world. Ah, yes. Yes, we're a part of this, and we're going to do this. So these were three storytelling structures that I particularly like, and in working with people here, that people tend to really respond to, and it's pretty clear in terms of the why, the belief, inspiring the belief, and contrasting what the world is and what it could be, and also, if it's appropriate for you, this idea of the hero's journey, which could be you, meaning your company. Oh, wow, like all the struggles we went through, but we learned so much, and we're here with the newest version of this product, or the newest version, and we're here to share it with you. But the hero can also be, again, your customer or your consumer, and you can put them in the driver's seat and make them into a hero. So these are just some questions I'm just sharing with you to see if, to inspire you or to kind of get you thinking about your story in a different kind of a way. So what is interesting about how your company was founded? Like with Agricool, what's interesting, right, is that they were two sons of farmers. If I said they were two sons of salesmen, you might have been like, doesn't really I don't really find that interesting. But the fact that they're two sons of farmers is interesting. What problem are you trying to solve? So this is going to be that tension point. What's the problem? What inspired you to start your business? The aha moments. Aha, yes. The moments where you learned something. The moments of discovery. These are also tremendously exciting. And how has your business evolved? Just like human beings, we've been evolving over the past 200,000 years, and evolution is a part of it. Our stories evolve with us. And so don't ever get too stuck with one version of the story or one story, because as you continue on your journey, developing your companies, wherever your journey might take you, that your stories are going to evolve with you. And you should, as we see with Apple, we see this so many companies, of course it evolves with them, because that's our stories evolve with us. So now let's take a sort of shift over to when you start actually communicating your stories. So some storytelling structures to get you a little warmed up, thinking creatively about different ways that you could present your content. And now, I'm sure you guys talk about your projects and your companies all the time, whether you're networking, whether you're meeting with investors, whether you're hiring employees, you're constantly talking about your projects. So when people come in to see me, I tend to ask a similar set of questions. So first I ask about context. Where is this happening? So are you going to be pitching? Are you going to be presenting? Are you going to be are you having a phone call? Context. What is it? Pitch, presentation, etc. And the reason why I put this up is the other day I worked with somebody and he came in, he's like, everybody that comes in is freaking out pretty much. I don't know what to do, English, And I said, okay, what are you doing? And he's like, I have to pitch my project. And I'm like, okay, where? And he's like, I have to go to the festival and stand up on stage before a musician comes on and pitch my idea for a minute. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're not in a conference room, you're at a music concert. He's like, yeah. And I said, okay, well, that changes everything. Because nobody at a concert is going to want to hear and then you can post it on Facebook and then it'll be live. No one wants to hear that. They're at a concert in a park. They're already pumped, super tons of energy. So it's okay, people are at a concert because they want to be a part of something. So in terms of a storytelling perspective, they should be in the front seat. Guys, I'm demoing this thing right now on this stage. The band's in on it. You all are going to be a part of the future. We're going to do this together, because that is the storytelling that would fit with a rock concert. That people are there to be a part of something. So he just aligned himself with that story. Well, we'll see. It happened yesterday. So we'll see how that one went. So remember, wherever you're doing this, to really think about what the people are doing there and try to align the way you're storytelling with the context. Who are you talking to? I love this so much because so many times people come and I'm like, who's your audience? They're like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah. That, you're crafting the story for them, and I can't emphasize that enough, that when you're crafting a story, you're crafting it for an audience. Obviously, when you're talking to an investor versus when you're talking to a potential client versus when you're talking to your mom, it's not the same story that you're going to tell, right? So this is really important to craft your story. Okay, what do you want them to do? So you're going up on stage and you're going to be pitching, you're going to be giving them a presentation, but what do you want them to do at the end? Do you want me to click? Do you want me to tell my friends? What do you want me to do? And when you define that really clearly, what do you want me to do? Then you can structure your talk or your presentation, your content, to serve what you want them to do at the end. Yeah, okay. How are you going to do that? So, game plan. This is Pinky and the Brain. This is a cartoon I used to watch as a child where Brain just plotted how to take over the world every episode. This is your game plan. Okay, so once you've defined what you want me to do, what you're looking for, now let's try to set an intention. Really clear, I mean like an intention, all right? Are you going to seduce, to educate, to caress, to tease? These things will help give you, well, yes, an intention, but let's just take to seduce. Let's say you're just trying to seduce someone, right? Meaning that could be to get them to buy, that could be to get them to sign up, but already the intention to seduce is not the same thing as to educate. Thus, the way you're going to tell the story is going to be a little bit different. Yeah? With you? With me? Once I know what I'm going to do, let's say you want me to sign up. How are you going to get me to sign up? Okay, well, I'm going to seduce you. But then what's your tactic, right? Okay. So you can be pretty, you can try to hide it a little bit. You can try to be sneaky about it, or you can be really blatant about it, right? Take an example in life, like if you're going to go seduce somebody, if you're going to ask somebody for their number, right? You could just like go up to them and be like, hey, can I get your number? Right? Can I get your number? You could, get yourself in there and just be around and try to strike up a conversation with them and see if that's a way you can get their number. There are tons of different ways that you can seduce. So things to keep in mind. Cast the right characters. Remember who your audience is and cast characters that will speak to them. That could be you're the main character. Could be them that they're the main character, but always be conscious of the character that you're choosing. What do you want me to remember? I always say this, I'm like, okay, you just gave me your speech, you just gave me your presentation, but I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna forget most of it. What are the 3 to 5 things that you want me to remember? And they go, reinvent. They start saying these words, and this is where repetition comes into play. This is text from that same speech of Steve Jobs. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. Here it is. So we're going to reinvent the phone. We're reinventing the phone. Don't you agree? We're reinventing the phone. And when you leave, you're like, reinventing the phone. It stays with you. So repetition is key. Repetition can really serve you so that your message sticks. Sensory triggers. So go back to my story when I got to work this morning. I got up and I came here. And then I heard these footsteps behind me, and then I turned and I saw red heels. Sensory triggers will help people to remember the story. So questions, when you're starting to navigate through your story, think, what do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I touch? And start to construct your stories using sensory senses to create sensation. It will help to remember the story. When I was telling the story of Troy, right, of the Trojan War, I was using sensory triggers so that you would remember Helen of Troy, all the flowers bowing before her, or Odysseus going for a walk, and then he sees the horse. All these things to help you remember the message that's inside the story. This one I love. This is hard. What do you say? What details? You can't be like, and then there was a red sign, and I smelled bread, and then it gets too confused, right? You don't have to say everything. You don't have to talk about your company, everything about your company. Whatever your intention is, right? Whatever your intention is, whatever you're trying to do with your story, the details should just serve that story. So with my friend over there in Austin right now, who just talked to a bunch of people in a park, right, about his cool company, he came in and he had so much information. He's like, and it's the only platform where you can like, put the video. It's Instagram, but it's better. Like all of this information. I'm like, no. What do you want them to do? Like, what do you want them to do? I want them to download the app and come see us at the station. I'm like, great. What's the coolest thing about, you're at a concert, it's cool. What's the coolest thing about your thing? And he's like, 360-degree interactive video. And I'm like, boom, baby, go, drive that. So remember that details are just serving the story. Editing, and I totally feel for you as a writer, like editing is not an easy thing. But the beautiful thing about stories is that they kind of take on a life of their own. You're serving the story. And so it takes a little bit of practice, but anything that's extra, that doesn't serve your story, just get rid of it. The idea is to leave people wanting more, not give them everything. So you have to think about a story as a way to seduce them and to leave them wanting more. Yeah, man, just be authentic, be yourself. We all have different gifts. We all have different personalities. I have a lot of energy, so that's my MO. But for example, I was working with Antoine from DiffMed for the DiffMed conference, which is tech in the medical industry, and he was sort of the MC for the event. And when I was working with him, I didn't tell him to do it like me. I wasn't like, yeah, be really animated and expressive. I said, you're really reassuring. Like, you have a really reassuring presence and voice. Just do it. Just embrace them like dad, Like, I'm going to take care of you. So whatever it is that's you, that's your authentic self, do that. Because we can feel that. So the reason why the Trojan horse worked, right, is because Odysseus got their story. So he was able to use the story to give them a rather intense surprise. We all know this scene and stuff, but when you know a story, when you know what your audience is expecting, then you can actually play within it and surprise us within it. And that's the cool thing about knowing the stories that whoever it is that you're talking to, how they see it, how the story normally goes, and then how you can change that story within it and surprise them. We'll leave this poor guy alone. So yeah, it's a lot. Storytelling's a lot. And but I hope you can I hope that you've started to see that you already have all the tools in your arsenal, and that we're all here because of stories. You guys have tons and tons of stories. Now it's just a matter of listening. Great storytellers are really great listeners. Listening, really actively listening. What is this person telling me? What does this story mean? What does this story mean to me? Asking questions, listening actively, because all the world's around you, and that is like your place to get your story. That is your place to get your stories. So listening is the first and most important tip I can give you, is listening and asking questions. Practice. It takes a lot of practice, but it's also not doesn't have to be that public. I mean, you have friends, you have families. You guys are always telling stories. Use them to try things. Use them. Tell them a story about your project. To try out a storytelling structure and see how they respond. Ask them what worked. Ask them what didn't work. Practice, because you have tons of opportunities to. I do this, and I always suggest, if people need a little bit of inspiration or help. So I gave somebody the assignment to journal just for a week. I was like, just journal. He's like, why am I doing this? It's like, he's like, I'll see you next week. So he comes in with his journal. And he's like, I don't like that. I don't like doing that. And I was like, oh, why didn't you like doing that? He's like, well, it was boring. And I'm like, let me see your journal. And so I look at his journal, and it's very like, oh, so I met an investor today. You know, I did this and I did that. Just very, I'm like, well, of course it was boring, because you just like listed just what you did that day. So now, if you were to go back and do it again for the second week, why don't you start looking around and listening actively and see if you can find stories out there. Start to have an experience. Start engaging your senses. What did you smell? What did you see? What did you touch? What colors did you see? Even that simple exercise can start to trigger that part of your brain. So I always say, keep a notebook of stories. My friends tell me stories, and I'm like, that's a good one. I'm gonna go write that one down. Because you never know when a story is going to serve you. Whether you're talking to somebody at a dinner, whether you're going to be giving a presentation. I mean, all the stories I said today came, just because I have them. I use my stories all the time. I'm like, what story can I use to illustrate this? It's also fun. And finally, have fun. Yeah. You know, I think if there's one thing I just want to impart with you today about storytelling is it's a part of it's also why I use so many images from these fairy tales and these myths. They're part of our childhoods. We grew up listening to stories. That it touches a really innocent and place in ourselves when we were creating constantly, and we were having fun. And at the end of the day, it's all about having fun. How storytelling should be that. It should be fun. It shouldn't be like, how am I gonna? What inspires you? What stories inspire you? We have tons and tons of people like Apple, presenting like Muhammad Ali and Picasso. Tons of people around us that inspire us. So have fun with that, and don't take it too seriously. Yeah? Okay. Thank you, guys. Any questions?
What do you usually notice in a group when you feel resonance with your story?
When I feel resonance with my story? With a group? Like what that does to me? It's fuel. I guess it feels like fuel. Sometimes it makes me want to cry, but I mean in a good way, emote. But no, I find it fuel. It's really exciting to connect with a bunch of people and feel that they're with you. You can feel when people are not with you. I could feel at times when you guys weren't with me, and then when you guys were really with me. So it's when you're with me, it's like it makes me really come alive. Thank you. Anybody else have a question?
Is it possible to implement this storytelling for everything? For example, when you present for an internship or something like that?
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. So much more fun. Like for an internship and stuff, yeah. So in that sense, like, why are you there? You can almost use the journey, the hero's journey. Kind of talk about how you got there, what you believe in. Of course, it's so much more interesting, much more compelling if I go, I did this, and I did this. You're like, okay, so, I just got out of school and I just didn't know what to do, and I was looking and searching for something, and I did this, I did great. See what I mean? And then you can build it like a story. Also, you can do the same thing with numbers, yeah? You can do the same thing with numbers. There is a guy who, in the storytelling workshop, who had like 50,000 users, had a tremendous amount of growth. When he was doing his pitch, it was like 3 minutes. No, I think it was like 3 or 4 minutes before we even heard that, right? And I was like, what? 50,000 users? You could craft a whole story around that, being like, we were running around just to get our first one, you know, and then we got them, and then he told his people, and then we were trying to like support all these people, and then now we have over 50,000 people, and it's really amazing. Like, just think what we could do with a little support. You know, you make it compelling. It's the idea of that struggle, that conflict, and how you overcome obstacles. If you kind of were following that one to arrive at, wow, here we are, or here I am. Does that answer your question? Yeah?
If you could provide us with one or two references, like books, if we want to get deeper in the topic.
Yeah, sure. So you could Google these storytelling structures, which opens up like a whole door. I have a list that I could provide. Yeah, can we? Yeah, on the meetup. So I'll put a list of stuff because I have like a bibliography, both on verbal and nonverbal communication. If you want to get into the body, which you should. Peter Pan remembered. His body remembered. Yeah. Anyone else?
Thanks for the amazing talk. Yeah, you said ask question, but the main problem when you try to ask question to someone that is talking, that is kind of in a monologue mode, is that, oh, you're not listening to me. They say, you ask the question, they say, oh, you're not listening to me, you stop me, and the only... But on the contrary, you're really listening because you're asking question, you react to what he says. So do you have some strategy
Are you making that up?
No.
Does that happen to you?
Yeah, all this week.
Well, you know, there's some people that don't actually, that's not really communicating. Those are just people that are just talking just to talk. That's a different kind. That's like a different kind of person. Because if someone is just trying to output without taking input, that's like that takes some therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, but when
I mean, you know what I mean. But I would say I have friends like that, and I work with people like that, and it's different when you're in a social context, obviously, or with your friends. Then I wouldn't pick them.
But the point is when it's up, when it's the person you're working for, in fact, and that you're working for the company, so you're struggling for the company, but just you're responsible, middle management, whatever, that try to, in a way, to block you. So you can flee because you want to fight. So how do you do to kind of avoid to have a conflict when you want to just move forward and you're asking a good question?
Yeah, okay, so your question is about dealing with someone that you work with who's high up, who won't stop talking, and who's aggressive, but you don't want to get into a conflict with them. Yeah, anybody have any ideas? I usually take a step back and give them room, and a lot of times I let a lot of things go. Because ultimately it's not about me. You know what I mean? And I just try and choose my entrances carefully, but I actually just don't get that involved, to be honest. I don't get involved. In terms of avoiding conflict, you just choose it very carefully, and you make it seem like it's all about them. Yes, and you know what? That's such a great idea, because we should do that too. You know, I think that's what you bring them in, so it's all about them. That would be one of my tactics that I would use. Yeah.
I wanted you to go back to that example, this guy you gave who's a different type of communicator than you are, sort of this reassuring person you mentioned.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm a trainer and...
You're what, I'm sorry?
I'm a trainer. I train people to sort of set up financial systems. But anyways, when I do my thing, people say, wow, you know, I like your energy, because I'm a little bit more like you with lots of energy. And then at the end, they realize, like, well, you know, I don't know if I can do what you just described because I don't have that kind of energy. And like, they you know, so in terms of conveying your message in a way that is more in tune with the style of participants and like, you know, telling stories that match their energy or whatever, do you have any tips around that?
Tell stories that match their energy. Yeah, I just try to, because energy does not mean energy. You know, we all have energy. You know, it's more capitalizing on the energy that you have. So what I try to do is when someone's talking to me or if I'm working with somebody, can be like, wow, you're really making me feel. I connect to how they're making me feel, and I'm like, wow, I feel really reassured. Or I'm like, wow, you're just hot, you're sexy, you know? Or yeah, and then I try to go, yeah, and I just try to support them and go, yeah, you know what, you're reassuring, you're so reassuring. Can you just really hold them? And I try to support them and encourage them to bring that out more and more and more. So I would say I connect to how they're making me feel, and I go like, wow, yeah, okay, you're like dad. I like connecting to archetypes because there's a lot of story around that as well, and people respond to archetypes. And then it's all about encouragement and bringing it out. And then usually it takes care of itself, because not everyone is a performer, you know? So it's more about finding their thing and making them feel confident about it, and so that they share it more openly. Yeah? So I'm here for any additional questions or to talk or share stories. Thank you guys so much. Have a nice day.
Que la famille.